Here's what you would expect. A tornado kills more than 150 people in a single American city, and somebody failed. The forecasters missed it, the sirens stayed silent, the warning came too late. That is the story we like to tell about disasters because it is the comforting one. A broken system can be repaired. Joplin, Missouri does not fit that story. On the 22nd of May, 2011, the National Weather Service warned Joplin a full 17 minutes before the tornado touched down. That is more lead time than the national average. The sirens sounded, and the forecast was right, and 161 people died anyway. When the government finally investigated what went wrong, it did not find a failure of technology. It found something far more unsettling. Almost nobody believed the warning was real. This is the story of the deadliest single tornado in modern American history, and the uncomfortable question it forced an entire country to answer. It started as an ordinary Sunday. Joplin sits in the far southwest corner of Missouri, a city of slightly more than 50,000 people, the kind of place where spring storms are so routine they barely interrupt dinner. That afternoon, 455 seniors from Joplin High School crossed a stage at Missouri Southern State University and collected their diplomas. Families in their good clothes spilled out into the parking lots afterward, some heading to restaurants, some heading home, all of them under a sky that was slowly turning the color of a bruise. At 17 minutes past 5, the National Weather Service issued a tornado warning that covered the whole city. Most people heard it, and most did nothing. The reason lies in what that warning had to compete with. There were 2 sirens that afternoon, not one. The first sounded at 11 minutes past 5, tied to a different storm cell drifting to the north, a cell that local broadcasters said would largely miss Joplin. So when the sirens wailed, many residents did exactly what years of experience had taught them to do. They looked outside, saw nothing, and went back to what they were doing. A second, non-routine siren activation came minutes later as the tornado was already entering the city. By then, though, the damage to people's judgment was done. They had been conditioned that same afternoon to treat the alarm as noise, and the thing bearing down on them did not look like a tornado. At around 5:34, it touched down west of the city and grew with terrifying speed to nearly a mile wide. It was rain-wrapped, buried inside a curtain of water so dense that people staring straight at it saw no funnel at all. What they saw was a solid black wall sliding across the horizon, and a black wall does not trigger the instinct that a spinning funnel does. Worse still, this tornado was slow. It ground forward at under 20 miles an hour, a pace that sounds merciful, and was the opposite. Instead of passing over Joplin, the storm sat on the city, tearing at the same ground for far longer than a fast-moving storm ever could. The tornado stayed on the ground for 38 minutes and carved a path roughly 22 miles long. About 6 miles of that path ran straight through the most densely populated heart of the city, with winds officially rated at over 200 miles per hour. St. John's Regional Medical Center, a 9-story hospital with 183 patients inside, took a direct hit. Staff heard the words "execute condition gray" over the intercom, with about 5 minutes to move people who could not move themselves. Nearly every window in the building blew out, and the emergency generators failed. Patients and visitors were among the dead, and the hospital was so badly damaged, shifted on its foundation, that it was later demolished. Nearly 24 residents of the Greenbrier Nursing Home, a single-story building, were lost when the walls came down. At a Home Depot, tilt-up concrete panels collapsed onto customers sheltering inside, killing several. And in the middle of all of it, ordinary people made extraordinary choices. At a Pizza Hut on Rangeline Road, the 27-year-old manager, Christopher Lucas, a Navy veteran with 2 children and a third on the way, herded his employees and more than a dozen customers into the walk-in freezer. Then, he held the door shut with a strap while the restaurant was torn apart around him. The door was ripped away, and Lucas with it. Nearly everyone he pushed into that freezer survived. Lucas did not. A few miles away, 18-year-old Will Norton was driving home from his own graduation with his father when the tornado pulled him through the sunroof of the family vehicle. He was wearing his seatbelt, and his father could not hold on. Inside the core of this storm, survival was not a matter of doing the right thing. Some people did everything right and died anyway. That is the part Joplin has never been able to make peace with. And then, when the sky finally cleared, the tornado kept killing. The search for the missing dragged on for days. Will Norton's body was recovered nearly a week later, on the 28th of May, in a pond a few miles from where he was taken. Something else was happening in the hospitals, something almost no doctor in Joplin had ever seen. About a week after the storm, wounds on survivors began growing visible mold. Debris that had been driven deep under the skin, wood and soil and gravel, had seeded a rare and aggressive fungal infection called mucormycosis. Investigators eventually documented 13 cases among the injured, and 5 of those people died. One local infectious disease specialist said he had seen only 2 such cases in 30 years of practice. The storm was still taking lives weeks after everyone assumed the danger had passed. When the counting was done, 161 people were dead, 158 of them killed directly. It was the deadliest single tornado in the United States since 1953, and at roughly $2.8 billion, the costliest in American history. In the months that followed, the tragedy produced something rarer. The National Weather Service did something government agencies rarely do and investigated itself. Teams interviewed around 100 survivors, and the findings they came back with were brutal in their honesty. The majority of the people they surveyed did not take shelter when they first heard the warning. Instead, most of them waited. They sought confirmation, turned on the television, looked to the sky, asked a neighbor before they were willing to act. Years of sirens going off for ordinary thunderstorms had bred a condition the investigators named directly. They called it warning fatigue. One resident summed up the whole tragedy in a single sentence that the report preserved. "All a siren means," the person said, "is that there's a little more water in the gutter." The weight of that sentence is hard to overstate. The technology worked, and so did the forecast. The one thing that failed was belief. And belief had been quietly eroded, one false alarm at a time, until the day it actually mattered, and the alarm had nothing left to spend. The storm even managed to unsettle the science that measured it. Joplin was officially rated an EF5, the highest level on the scale. 2 years later, an engineering study by the American Society of Civil Engineers came to a startling conclusion. It found no clear evidence of EF5 level damage anywhere in the city. More than 80% of the damage they surveyed, they said, was consistent with far weaker winds. The problem was not that the tornado was weak. The scale rates a tornado by the wreckage it leaves, and Joplin's buildings were not engineered strongly enough to prove how hard the wind was blowing. Investigators had to lean on other clues instead, contextual evidence like heavy vehicles thrown and wrapped around trees and manhole covers ripped clean out of the street. To this day, the exact ferocity of the Joplin tornado rests partly on the debris it scattered, because the wind moved faster than our instruments could ever confirm. Joplin's dead did not die for nothing. Because of what happened there, the National Weather Service rewrote how it talks to America. Out of that self-investigation came impact-based warnings, first deployed in the Central Plains the following year, adding escalating language like catastrophic and particularly dangerous situation, so that a routine alert and a killer storm would never again sound identical. When Mercy rebuilt the hospital that was destroyed, they engineered the new building around the storm itself, with upper-floor windows rated to survive winds over 200 miles per hour, hardened corridors, and generators moved off-site and connected by tunnel. And in the ruins of Joplin High School, someone rearranged the fallen letters of the school's shattered sign to spell 3 new words. The sign read, Hope High School. There is one last thing Joplin carries, and it is not something science can measure. In the weeks after the storm, therapists working with the city's traumatized children began hearing the same account over and over from kids who had never met one another. They described winged, glowing figures they called the butterfly people, who they said had shielded them during the tornado. The stories came from children of every age and every neighborhood. Psychologists explain it as the way young minds turn unbearable trauma into something they can hold. Many in Joplin chose to hear something gentler in it. Either way, the town embraced the accounts, and in 2014, it opened a memorial butterfly garden in their honor. 15 years on, the scar the tornado cut through Joplin has been rebuilt. The date has never lost its weight because Joplin remains the town that America's entire warning system now measures itself against. So here is the question worth sitting with. If the sirens went off in your town right now, this minute, would you actually move or would you wait to see for yourself? Joplin is the answer to what happens when a whole city waits. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to subscribe because these are the stories worth remembering.